We are live. This is the market update. Why is the market down? Well, I read an article just before I came on the air and it said the market's down because the market's down. Then we find out some huge trader who I guess was trying to be the Michael Saylor of trading. You know, I'm on social media. I'm not opposed to getting attention, but when you're on chain and you let everybody know where your stop is, it's literally the oldest trick in the book. When everybody knows where the stops are, they go get the stops. And everyone goes, oh, the market's manipulated. People, this kind of stuff is literally older than me. Actually, it's way older than me. If they know where the stops are, they'll get the stops. Foreign exchange pretty much perfected the process in the 80s and the 90s. Bonds, the same thing. They know where the stops are. They will get you. So the market goes down overnight. Everyone's upset. It looks terrible. Big conference disappointment trade. Everyone wraps a narrative, and everyone is selling the stuff that they should be buying. So if you want help with that, you are in the right place. So you're not going to fall for any of this, I don't know, distractions. Michael Saylor talked about AI today. He must watch the show, right? Talking about mastering AI to be wealthy, right? Like with AI, if you've got the right question, it's got the answer. If you don't have the question, you don't have the answer. And if you don't have the question, that's okay. The question is, what are you doing about crypto to invest in your prosperity going forward? Because the Bitcoin conference, as I understood it, was like this giant corporate custody commercial, right? In other words, it was all sponsored by people that either want to do stable coins or want you to deposit your Bitcoin with them like a bank account. Now, of course, that's fine and dandy. You don't want to keep it in your house, although you do in theory, but we'll talk about that. But the cyberpunk aspect of crypto isn't there. And I think if you can figure out how to invest in the cyberpunk rebellious, let's do decentralized AI, let's do something different. It's not optional. It's a must, right? Especially if I can go in here and find, I'll try to find the article where some guy ironically gets super biblical in getting attention on AI. We will talk about that. Okay, so let's welcome who's here so we can all be free men and women together. We have Tyler, Zapadas, Ben, DH, Tooth. We have DAVT 97, Blown Ideas, and Zav. Welcome to the show. I'm on live, right? I'm broadcasting. Yes. Okay. Let's hit it. News. Everyone's depressed today. That's crazy. Okay. Musk is done with Washington, but Washington isn't done with him. It's probably true. This guy will be looking over his shoulder the rest of his life. I'm guessing. Right? He probably made a lot of people upset, and I'm sure they're going to try to put back everything that he did manage to cut. I'm going to tell you something right now. He didn't handle himself correctly. He didn't. He did not handle himself correctly. It was a little bit too showboaty, just like this trader that got liquidated. Now, I know this is going to sound really funny coming from a guy with a social media show. In certain circumstances, if you're an emotional attention seeker, you're going to make wrong decisions. This happens to me all the time, right? It's going up and it's like, it's so tempting to be like, oh my God, it's going up forever. Meanwhile, traders are just, whatever. This guy got emotional about what he was doing and drew a lot of attention to himself. And then it opened up the opportunity for them to, do what they did, which was get after the brand name of the car, right? Which got him in trouble with BlackRock and everyone who owns the stock. Now, that said, they're never going to stop spending. Never. And I'm actually going to show you, if the market did freak out a little bit, I'm actually going to show you what they freaked out about. It's buried in the big, beautiful bill. Okay, so, me and Mr. Musk aren't on the same page on everything. Not that anyone cares, but I kind of hope the Orange Man gives him a good send-off, because even though he did have an agenda about Mars, he did slam into the federal bureaucracy. I mean, it'll probably be remembered as the guy that threw the first punch against the multi-trillion-dollar monster. And if there's ever a sequel, then you got to watch out, right? That may also happen, right? In other words, the guy's exit has been so somber and unceremonious and borderline embarrassing. The Orange Man's got to come in and kind of bail him out with a press conference, setting up a possible comeback. But in the meantime, they're not going to stop spending. And as a reminder, Elon was trying to help the little guy. He's trying to help the little guy. Right? He was talking about tax relief, stimulus checks. Okay. The people who he was trying to help didn't want to be helped. And of course, Doomberg, trade talks stalled, right? Bessent says, we're not getting anywhere. Of course you're not getting anywhere, dummy, right? Communists can't admit weakness. Now, can Trump and Z work something out? I hope so, right? But they mean business when they're kicking all of like the, their students out of the country. It's like, I don't know that you get to get here and suck up our educational resources and then leave. And undoubtedly, he's making this Chinese leader hot under the collar. Naturally, Doomberg will pick up on that. Naturally, that has absolutely nothing to do with crypto, except to demonstrate government ineptitude or sovereign ineptitude. Sovereign ineptitude is bullish crypto. So it's like, well, the tariffs aren't going well. The judge said yes. Okay, again, when these headlines are kind of getting slowly more pathetic, right? And when it rolls over again and they're out of talking points, crypto goes right back up again. Now, this you got to pay attention to. This is fantastic for the dollar, fantastic for crypto, and terrible for the dollar. Ignore the tariff court challenge. Here's the obscure nuclear option hidden in the big, beautiful bill. Okay. Weaponization of U.S. capital markets into law. Okay. So the legislation creates the scope for the U.S. administration to transform the trade war into a capital war. In other words, this is what Arthur Hayes was talking about. So if you've got investments in the United States, guess what? We can come in and tax your investments. So if you don't live here and you invest $100, we'll take $2. It's like a bail-in. The legislation undermines the attractiveness of dollar inflows at a time when this is already put into question. So this gives you 2 points, right? One, they want the dollar massively lower. That's assuming that they know what they're doing. And two, they're just desperate for money. They're just desperate, right? The tariff thing didn't work out. So now they have to put something else in. And who knows? This could have been the end game the whole time. You want to come here and invest? Fine. You're going to pay us 1%. Very kind of family syndicate type of business for any Italians out there. You know what I'm saying? They're like, yeah, you want to be on my turf? You're going to pay me some money. I don't know if that's going to work. Most likely that's going to result in people selling, which is probably why Bitcoin got sold, which is why stocks got sold after NVIDIA, blah, 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 blah. This means dollar lower. I don't know what it does to stonks and bonds. You know, this could include crypto investments. This could create volatility. But at the end of the day, dollar's going lower, right? People sell their stocks. They sell their bonds. They sell the dollar, convert back into their native currencies, and go home. Or I don't know what, I just know that Arthur Hayes talked about this as the thing that sends Bitcoin to $1 million, right? Because this is what actually gets the dollar lower, because no matter what they do, they just can't get it down. So The fine print of the big, beautiful bill to me is more important than any of this other stuff that they've been talking about. Like, oh, the Japanese government bond market, that's important. But like this, they pull this card and start like forcing the dollar lower. Whew, that create a lot of volatility. Now, speaking of a lot of volatility, not these speeches at the Bitcoin conference. Oh my God. Supposedly, well, Michael Saylor did have one good thing to say, but no strategic reserve. The orange man's kids bull posting it. No material announcement of any kind, right? JD says crypto can help everyday Americans. And, Communist News Network says, only 17% of adults have ever used it. And the percentage that have recently used it is half that. So, guys, strategic reserve, sovereign wealth fund. Hello, anyone out there? Anybody? So people sold. This guy got liquidated, and that's why the market went down. And you know what? That's a terrible reason to sell the market. Because, these guys were never going to say anything, I don't think. And they've made mistake after mistake after mistake. And they're going to make the dollar go lower. And the government hasn't bought Bitcoin yet. They didn't like it at 77 and they don't like it at 105. But, at 250K, it'll be much more attractive. Trump in private meeting tells Powell, whatever. That must have been a very interesting meeting. So, Mr. President, you think I'm an idiot? Hi. Oh, wait, you need me to print $2 trillion a year more? Oh, I see. So am I still an idiot or not? That's interesting meeting, right? I think the fact that the meeting occurred, I think, is kind of a sign of weakness from the orange man's position. I think, right? Because you're not going to get the big, beautiful bill through if these guys are not there to stabilize the bond market. So he had to go make nice. It's the art of the deal working in the opposite direction. Again, who in God's name is selling in this kind of environment? I mean, I understand these volatility and risk assets. I get it. You cannot possibly be selling in an environment where they're demonstrating like this level of insanity. Now, I'm getting a little bit more direct lately. Okay, so I know the negative price action is not good, but I heard something on a podcast, and now it's kind of out there. These large language models, right? The LLMs, the chatbots, Anthropic issues warnings saying 50% of entry-level white-collar jobs done. You must figure out how to invest in crypto and AI in crypto, even if it's like a 1% of your portfolio spec play. Crypto is the path to prosperity, 1. 2, it could be a hedge against something weird happening, which can happen all of a sudden, right? McKinsey sheds 10% of staff in 2-year profitability drive. Knowledge just got really cheap, and they're in the knowledge business. McKinsey consultants getting fired for operational efficiency. You dare use my own spells against me, Potter. Okay. Supposedly, these companies have got chatbots that have got every single report that they've ever done inside the chatbot, turning a kid who can use the chatbot into an experienced person that's been there for 30 years and has seen everything and done most of it. You must get busy on this and have fun doing it, right? They want to do something weird with AI. Excellent. Michael Saylor said it exactly right at Bitcoin. We'll get to this. Now, on the insanity of spending. So apparently, these are all the places where U.S. soldiers are stationed. I don't know. We do this to the tune of $1 trillion per year. And if it's all done by robots and drones and hypersonic missiles, this feels like an outdated model to me. But They want an additional $200 billion for defense. In some ways, I understand it. And in some ways, you look at this and go, oh, look, it's orange over here. Yeah, just buy it. ETH, Solana, XRP. I would even put Bitcoin Cash in there. Somebody, I got bit by the Bitcoin Cash bug. I'll show that on my Twitter if we have time. Okay. So Ross reminds everybody when he launched the Silk Road, Bitcoin costs less than $1. Today, it's over 100,000. That was the speech at Bitcoin Vegas that no one watched. Shame on those people. Why wrench attacks on wealthy crypto holders are on the rise. Okay. So I guess if you're a super wealthy person, you might want to diversify the places where you keep your crypto, or you might want to, pay a visit to Texas and do some shopping, if you get what I'm saying. Funny how these things happen. They don't happen when Bored Apes go to $600,000 each, but suddenly when everyone's into Bitcoin as an alternative and everyone's into stable coins, suddenly guys are getting their doors kicked in and creating these negative headlines, right? Like Associated Press, Reuters, JD Vance, you see what I'm saying? This is what they spray everywhere. Don't buy any crypto. Don't open up a Coinbase account. Your life will turn into some sort of action movie where the bad guys will come get you. Crazy. You need to be free because I'm not sure they want you to be free. So says Talking John McAfee. This might be a good time to just remind everybody, this is McAfee. I know you can't hear it, but this is McAfee talking to Roger Ver. And McAfee essentially introduces himself and says, you know what? I'm really into personal freedom. I'm into personal freedom, bro. I think my money is my money, and that's it. And you know what? When I listen to real McAfee talk, AI McAfee's getting pretty freaking close. And you don't have to like any part of this, but you do need to understand it. Because part of the whole thing about AI that's scary is about your sovereignty. Who's in control? You are. Why are we here? So we can be free. That's why. And that message needs to get more serious. More serious. Even if you're investing in silly stuff. This is why I all of a sudden became okay. It's like, we want to do Pudgy Penguin, Scheme Ass Dog. Puh, let's go. Let's go. Dear Mr. Bitcoin, you have 2 days and 16 hours to rally, or you're going to print a bearish divergence on weekly charts, and then we will be bored for weeks and weeks and weeks. Okay, so this might be a good time to remind you that I think altcoins are better. I know they stink right now. I also think when you have mega trends, you have to be careful about worrying about divergences and when do I sell and when is it a top, right? All we did was run some stops and liquidate some people like this guy. One thing for sure is that I have exposed just how corrupt these markets are. Guess it's better to buy and hold than do whatever you did. Dude, and this guy down here is like, dude, you lost $100 million? Is that actually right? Listen, when you trade, you don't draw attention to yourself. Like, I admire traders who can run live streams. That's good. Because, you got to be super clinical. And, if you're being public about one position, you got to know they're going to liquidate you. And you should be like advertising one position, knowing they're going to come get you. And you can buy your own capitulation. Okay. Don't get emotional when trading. I know we have guys that handle this, so I don't. But this is what happens when you get emotional. Now, more emotion. Okay. Conor McGregor, great fighter, right? Says, I love what the guy in El Salvador has done. Germany sold their Bitcoin. Ireland's not going to do that. I want to reclaim the nation. It's not a bad plan. But it's funny how the plan materializes during the Bitcoin conference when Bitcoin is at 109,000. You know what I'm saying? Like at 77, this was not on the map. Now, hopefully, if this guy does it, actually, I would like to see him do more than one crypto, not just Bitcoin. But again, a little bit of euphoria, and it's okay to wash people out. Like this guy who just got washed out, he's not along anymore. What's going to happen if it turns higher? He's going to FOMO back in, hopefully with a whole set of different wallets for his sake. Okay. $66 million food stamp scam. Governments, sovereigns, right? Yep, there it is. $100 million. You got to be enthusiastic, but when you're doing like this kind of stuff, you got to be clinical. I know you know, but I'm reminding you because I don't want my people in like the $100 million loser club. Okay. Jack Mallers' strike to expand Bitcoin into Europe, UK, Latin America, and Africa. BTC is the best collateral known to man. And you know what? That makes sense. And you know what? If they do enough lending against Bitcoin, you might get that crown jewel, which is a Bitcoin interest rate. You know, can you imagine if I got up on the stage with like Mike Novogratz and Michael Saylor, and I said, you know what we need? We need bonds issued in Bitcoin so Bitcoin can have an interest rate. One day, someone's going to do that, and everyone's going to be the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, like, genius says we need a Bitcoin interest rate. The first guy that does it, I'm telling you, like you want to see the market go up, like real currencies have interest rates. U.S. international trade ruled against the United States on tariffs. Wow, that's a lot of text. Every single word says buy crypto. Effective immediately, all customers can now buy and sell crypto on Binance US. US dollar services are live. Eagle King is a big fan of Binance. I got to go check it out. I really do. I got to check it out. You know, it's like Coinbase needs an incentive to get everything off the base network listed. Like every time Virtuals pumps something out, that's got to go immediately to Coinbase. I don't know why that's not happening. But, you know, when you have Gemini giving away, Cybertrucks and Binance is back, competition is a beautiful thing when it comes to trading fees and coins that you can trade. The Russians want in after something happened to their Tether wallet. Whoops. You know, preventing people from doing crypto is terrible. Sanctions don't work, right? The Russians will get blocked from Tether. They'll get blocked from Tether. They'll start their own thing. Stupid, right? You want them actually using our stuff. But again, this is sovereigns, right? Do they have your interest at heart? You know, let's do more of what's not working. Okay, SEC done fighting Binance. Huge win for crypto. Sell. All this stuff has been sell the fact, by the way. All this stuff where, you know, SEC drops charges, SEC just, you know, everybody, they're there to just unwind everything. They can't get it done fast enough so they can go play golf. Like they got to pay damages to anybody that they hurt. I don't know, in crypto and other places. They're just like, we're done. We're doging ourselves. Get out of all this stuff. Let these guys do their thing. $153 Tether just announced USDT is coming to Bitcoin Lightning. It's obviously a typo. It can scale in. It can scale to trillions of users. You know, again, once the stable coin thing, I know you've heard this. The stable coin thing is going to be a valuation jump. So Tether's coming to Lightning, Circle, Russians start their own thing. BlackRock buys 10% of Circle. You're not going to be able to keep track of the headlines. And then everyone's going to wake up one day and goes, you know, I think this whole space is too cheap because, you know, legacy players are just paying up. Like the whole Bitcoin conference was like, hey, come do business with us. I mean, dude, they're porting. It's the Bitcoinization of the whole system. If Bitcoin is going to be absorbed and is going to be like a legacy thing, that's going to push the whole ecosystem up. Not to mention the fact that the cyberpunk stuff is also too cheap. Michael Saylor explains why you need to master AI to become wealthy. That's kind of generic. It's true, I think, right? In other words, if you can be a super productive person with AI, you're going to have a competitive advantage because, they're developing the LLMs, not necessarily with your best interest at heart, period. So if you learn to use it, if you can't beat them, join them. Now, he's also trying to connect probably without directly taking from my guy, Jordy Visser, and saying that Bitcoin and AI are the pinnacle of the prosperity trade, which, he's doing his version. You'll have your version. And I'll tell you right now, your version, this is different from the crypto in the past, right? So somebody buys 5 cryptos. They have no idea what they're doing. They lose their shirt. It's sad. In this case, you try to buy 5 cryptos, and then 5 years from now, no one's going to look at you and say, you know what? You shouldn't have tried. You should have skipped that. You should have bought a treasury bill. No, absolutely not. Shoot your shot. Shoot your shot. Fear greed at 74. I heard talk fear greed went all the way down to 61 overnight while they were liquidating everybody in their sleep. Crazy. European huge banks back, right? Oh, God. Here we go. See, they're trying to find the orange man's underbelly. China imposes fresh ban on holding crypto. Okay. They sent all the miners over here and they're trying to make the market go down because they're seeing crypto as the orange man's underbelly, and anything that the communists have done regarding Bitcoin has been flat out wrong. Every time they ban it. I remember this in 2018. Oh, we're banning it. Oh, we're getting rid of it. Oh, we're doing this. China hates it. Go down and go straight back up again. Like it's better if they hate it. It is. It's more bullish if they hate it. But, they take it down overnight. No one can own crypto because no one can be free. Why do they not want you to own crypto? Because, I don't know. Facial recognition, their CBDC. I don't know if this applies to Hong Kong, but this is going to make people want it more. I know guys out of Hong Kong. I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to have to walk out of their apartment and just take a flight somewhere. I mean, crazy. They need it more. They need it more than we do. They do. Okay. SEC says crypto proof of stake, not a problem. Again, how fun must it be to just be there and just be like, okay, next. $345 million liquidated. Oh, okay. I told you about this, right? This is what they do. They get everybody leaning. Everyone's euphoric. Everyone's into it. At the conference, boom, liquidate everyone. Bitcoin ETF at the premium zone. It's not a surprise. That's why I prefer altcoins right now. And then, boom, you just take everyone's chips off the table, and then they eventually take it up. Now, also coming from my own Twitter, rarely do I do anything off my own Twitter, but I've got quite the collection. Okay. This is what they did not talk about at the Bitcoin conference. So you can't really see it, but this is Roger Ver, the Bitcoin Cash guy. Okay. Talking about how U.S. sanctions against a Middle Eastern country in the 90s resulted in 500,000 children perishing, according to reports. And this is him explaining to people in tears that this is why you want Bitcoin, because of these decisions that sovereigns can make are life and death. Okay. And you know what they did to this guy? They did the same thing they did to McAfee. It was like, yeah, I mean, it's like, the antivirus guy sent this, he was like the head guy, he sent it to us. And it's like, hey, yeah, this is what happened to Roger. This is what happened to this guy. And I went to look at the Bitcoin Cash chart. I'm like, this might be interesting. You know, you got like an open mouth formation because he's got a book that said, you know, Bitcoin Cash is better for payments, and it probably is. And it's funny, just at a point where, you know, normies may come in here and discover green Bitcoin. So you're sitting at the equilibrium zone. The premium zone is all the way up at 600. There's a lot of room here. Okay. If you go to the weekly chart, it gets even more fun because you have this huge triangle, right? Yeah, I'm talking about going cyberpunk, you know, like you kind of have the Bitcoin conference and everyone does their big corporate thing and everyone's going to go buy stable coins and, you know, pay $25 billion for Circle. Meanwhile, okay, we got a triangle. And what do? What, traders out there? A little reclaim, right? Down, reclaim, hold maybe. And then whoop. Premium zone's up at 720. So maybe it won't get totally crazy, but what do you want to buy? Stuff that no one likes, no one owns. No one likes this. No one likes altcoins today. Apparently, everything's getting smacked, including AI. Like the graph down 6%. I don't know, man. This just, it feels like they're selling on a giant disappointment trade from the conference. They liquidate this guy. China headlines come out. Are we seeing is there a pattern here? In other words, what is the value of this show for any nice people who have gotten 30 minutes in? What's the pattern here? They're trying to get you off crypto at the exact moment where you're being told that you got to figure out crypto and you got to figure out AI. It's not optional. It can be fun. It should be fun. You should figure it out. It's fun. You know, I'm trying to find all these little dinky coins, right? There's something called ZKAI, which actually, ironically, a friend of mine looks like he got paid to do a TikTok on, which is something that me and one of my colleagues was actually looking at. It's like, wow, it's like privacy while using a chatbot. It's really interesting. Not investment advice. Okay. Can't do low caps on this stream. You know, I can talk about antivirus because I own it and I think it's cool, but you got to find some small cap AI. You got to get 1-2% in there. You got to get your memes. You got to have fun. You got to get it going. I know that sounds insane, but that's what you absolutely have to do. In other words, you have to go out and have fun. You know, as with your parents, when you were a kid, they said, you must study for your test or you must behave. Now I'm like, you must go out and invest and speculate. You got to do both. Not in an attention-getting kind of way like this dude that just got liquidated. You want to be disciplined in your trading, but you want to be, I think, not investment advice, aggressive in your investing because of this. Because of what the chatbots could do to the employment picture, right? So approach crypto and have fun. Tons of it, right? Tons of it. Because you know what? You'll do better at it if you have fun. I know, man. You're like, wow. Hey, Bill, you've been reading those Tony Robbins books again? What are you doing, bro? All right. So 4-hour charts. Okay. So what are we doing in Bitcoin? We're doing A, B, C. We're doing a little correction. Doing a little check on everybody. Liquidating this dude over here with these big fat red candles. Drop it overnight. Stops. Thank you. Let's go the other way. Kind of like right out of the book. You know, ETH. This is a wave 4. There's going to be a wave 5. We've talked about this. Okay. You know, it's coming, and you can see every time it goes down, every time it wicks down, these hammer candlesticks, they just keep bringing it back. They take it down and bring it back, and they may do that for another day or two. Whatever. I can wait, especially after some of this GAN research that I did. You know, some of this GAN research, like, you know, I sat here and I was like, whoa, you know, crypto and AI as a trade together, right? I mean, you are early. You are, especially in the altcoin space. And even to a certain degree in AI. Yeah, NVIDIA is worth $3 trillion. I still think the AI trade, I mean, again, if large language models, like if you consider, like right now, it's kind of like just a tool or a toy, and then there's going to be something bigger happen later on. You got a lot of catalysts in the middle there. A lot of catalysts. Like first it was like, well, it's going to be Skynet. And then it's, well, maybe the labor market. It's getting more realistic. But again, in the middle, between now and whatever dark thing they want to tell you about, which is not the right way to approach it, there could be a lot of hugely positive catalysts in there. Not to mention the fact that machines are not going to use fiat. They're not. They're just not. So Solana, how nice. Support was at 166. Let's take it down here. You see this wick? Stop everyone out. Push it down. Make it look terrible. Do that for another day or two. It'll be a 9 bottom. And then we'll see. We'll see. This stop fishing exercise. I mean, what? You think it's just in Bitcoin with this leverage guy? Of course not. It's everywhere. An unusual DeMark formation in XRP. A, B, C, and extended hootenanny. Right? This 0 means that you've had this like extended correction that may have ended. Yet this trade's terrible and no one wants to touch it at the exact moment where you should. Because Michael Saylor indirectly just told you. He's like, you have to master AI. Really? Is that what he said? Or did he mean something else? He just couldn't say it because it was the Bitcoin conference, right? Like what goes along with AI? Solana, altcoins, right? Another sector. He's talking about there's Bitcoin and there's AI-based investments. What's an AI-based investment? Crypto. Crypto. Even if all you're doing is like layer ones, like does this have to be? I mean, yes, you can have fantastic picks and there are all kinds of people to help you with that. But if you could only do the majors and maybe 1 or 2 altcoins, you may just be able to sit back and watch the whole thing 10 or 20x or more. If you get the right small coin. I mean, this, like my old boss, this is like his, this like these tech guys they got to be drooling over this. They got to be drooling over it. Following the super intelligence token. It's like this big square nothing that they're doing. This big square over here, rounding bottom. The 9 signal and the 13 signal over here. It works kind of good, right? You get a top on this 13. You get a bottom on the 9 and the 13. And all we got to do is sit here and wait. And Bitcoin Cash is because I can't control that rebellious instinct. Not seeing much going on here on the 4-hour chart other than the fact that they wicked everybody down overnight and they couldn't even get to support. It would be kind of funny if the bottom in Bitcoin Cash was at the Bitcoin conference itself and it's holding on top of 400. I've had it for a while. And I actually listened to like the first couple chapters of Roger Ver's book, which the title currently escapes me. Okay. We're talking about alternatives to Bitcoin. No one's talked about Litecoin. No one's talked about digital cash. Bitcoin is not digital cash, right? It's a store of value or for large transactions. What happens if people become interested in these things? I mean, I had a colleague in the last cycle and we were talking digital cash, digital cash, digital cash. It didn't come around. But what happens if it comes around this time and no one's thinking about it? No one. Okay, folks, that is the market update for today. We will see you tomorrow.